How's it going, everyone? As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. This is PSReady, my channel all about PlayStation. I hope you had a great weekend playing video games. In this video, I've got 4 great topics to cover. The first one is that your PS5 is finally becoming a PS3. The second news story is that Sony's being accused of making secret deals behind the scenes on big games, but we're going to talk about why that's kind of BS. And then the third and fourth news story are about 2 huge games that are finally coming to the PlayStation 5. Quick Gran Turismo update. I made my way all the way through the license test. It unlocked the master ones. I have not even started those. I'm actually playing the real game now, doing the cafe menus. That last license test is impossible. I don't understand how anyone could get gold on it, but I will do it so I can get that trophy. I think I've gotten through everyone who's added me on the PSN. So yeah, that's the update on my 2 pressing issues of playing Gran Turismo 7 and also adding 1,000 people on the PlayStation Network. All right, let's jump into this first news story here because I am like so excited about it. So, you know, if you've been watching this channel for a little while now, my favorite thing to about with the PS5 is that it doesn't have native PS3 support, because I understand that a lot of people who are playing on the PS5 right now are younger. They might not have grown up during the PS3 era. And, you know, at the beginning of that generation, there weren't a ton of people involved in the PS3 ecosystem. I was a lone warrior. None of my friends had it. I was playing games like Uncharted and Uncharted 2 all by myself. And then later on in the generation, it did end up passing the 360, but it took a little bit because of Sony's botched launch. But I want to go back and play those games I grew up with. There are so many games that are just stranded on the PlayStation 3 where really there's no effective way to play them unless you have a super high powered PC where you can emulate them, or you don't have eyes, I guess, and can play these games over the cloud. But I can't do that because they're already 720p. They're already running below 30 frames per second and a lot of times. So like adding on blocky textures and latency, it's not my preferred way to play the game. I'd rather just not play it at that point. But we've heard rumors for a long time now that Sony's been working behind the scenes to figure out how to get their own PS3 emulator working. And when Implicit Conversions was hired on to start making a new emulator for the PS2, I was kind of speculating that that might be a trial run for an eventual PS3 emulator. And now we have some concrete info from Special Nick, a very trusted leaker in the world of PlayStation and Xbox and everything. And he's saying that Sony is working on their emulator for PS3 games to play natively on the PS5. Now, this is obviously exciting for a ton of reasons. There is one big caveat though. He specifically said it's for select PS3 games, and to me that basically says first party stuff, which honestly, if I listed out the entire library of PS3 games that I enjoyed playing that can't be played anywhere else, obviously they're all mostly locked on the PlayStation 3 and mostly first party. Stuff like Infamous 1 and 2, stuff like Warhawk, stuff like Starhawk, stuff like Gran Turismo 5 and GT5 Prologue, even GT6. Resistance 1, 2, and 3 are all locked on the PlayStation 3. Metal Gear Solid 4 is another PS3 exclusive that's never made its way onto other consoles. It might be coming in Volume 2 of the Master Collection for Metal Gear, but as of now, the only way to play it not on a PS3 is to emulate it. Even some mediocre games like Lair or Heavenly Sword. There are so many great first-party games that I grew up playing that I want to play again, where even if we do have the caveat of it just being select games for the moment, I'll take it because I just want to go back and play these PlayStation 3 games on my PS5, and hopefully they can bring across some of the filters and the upscalers and everything like that, or even allow you to connect a DualShock 3 to your PS5 via Bluetooth and use that to play these games. Because believe it or not, I still have my PlayStation 3 and all my DualShock 3 controllers. I would love to play these games in an upscaled fashion. And it is also really good news that he specifically points out that the point is to get these running natively on the PlayStation 5, because the closer we get to the PS5 Pro release, the more scared I was getting that this was going to be a feature that they advertised specifically for the PS5 Pro. I understand it from some perspective where there might not be enough power where it's worth putting in the work on the PS5, but if you can do it on like a mid to high range PC, there's no excuse really to leave that in the dust, especially if that's your core console at the time, which when the PS5 Pro comes out, the PS5 will still be the core console. That's the one that's going to be getting all the updates and all the focus because that's the one that's going to sell sell the vast majority of the units that Sony pushes to users. So just going off of the previous timeline with implicit conversions and their PS2 emulator, we heard about that in like February or January of this year, and then we started to get it around June. I honestly think they'll save this news for the showcase where they not only announce the PS5 Pro, but also announce all of the first party games that we're still waiting for on the PlayStation 5. I mean, that's like a 1-2 punch right there. That's good enough. A great way to close out the show, a one more thing moment, you know, the classic Apple thing would be to say, we're working on PS3 emulation. It's going to be available right now. If you have a PS Plus premium subscription, you'll be able to access these games through your subscription, or you'll be able to buy them a la carte, which would be great for me because I own a lot of these games digitally. I've told this story before, but when I beat Uncharted 3, I got the yellow light of death on my PS3, but it was the one where just the Blu-ray laser broke. And by Uncharted 3 coming out, every game was being released digitally on the PS3. So when I would trade games in, I would do it for store credit, like PS Store credit, and then I would buy games digitally. So I own a ton of digital PS3 games, and I would love to be able to take advantage of those on the PS5, and it seems like it's finally going to happen, which is just amazing. It's been a long road to get here. I've done this channel for over 2 years now, maybe even 3 years, and the entire time, the one thing I've always requested in updates is the ability to play PS3 games on my PS5. It's embarrassing how good it is on Xbox, where you can literally take an original Xbox disc, put it in your Xbox Series X, and then play that game. Same goes for 360, same goes for Xbox One. There's no excuse for Sony to not have that feature on the PS5, so this time I will say better late than never. So that brings us to the second news story here, which is that a lot of people think Sony's making secret deals behind the scenes to make games exclusive. And this time we're talking about Black Myth Wukong, but if you really look into the issue, I don't think that's the case. So if you don't know what's going on here, people are excited for this game. It's a top seller on Steam. It's kind of capturing that Gamergate 2.0 crowd because I guess the girls are attractive in it. But to me, from all the gameplay I've seen, from people who have played it that I've talked to, it seems like it's going to be a very good game. This one's been a long time coming. All of the trailers have looked great so far. So the release date was announced during Summer Game Fest Showcase, which I was at, and people immediately noticed that it's coming out on Steam, it's coming out on Epic Game Store, and it's coming out on PS5, but it's not coming out at launch on Xbox. So a lot of people started to think in the Xbox camp that Sony might have done one of their third-party exclusive deals that they did with like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or a myriad of other games. But there's a lot more evidence to point that it's actually Xbox's fault that this game is not coming to Xbox at launch and that Sony did not do a deal. We'll talk about the Sony angle first. First of all, if they had an exclusive deal for this game, where do you think it would have shown up? Would you think it would show up at Summer Games Fest? No, it would not show up there. It would show up at the State of Play they did a week beforehand, where they announced a bunch of exclusive games for the PlayStation 5, like Silent Hill 2 Remastered, right? Like they've put a lot of money into that game to make it a PS5 and PC exclusive. They advertise it at every single State of Play. If there is an intention to announce the release date for Black Myth Wukong, you would be pretty certain, or at least I would, that that would show up at the State of Play and not at Summer Games Fest, and they would be on stage saying, yeah, we got this exclusively at launch for 3 or 6 months, right? Like that's what Sony does. The second thing is Sony hasn't said anything about this, and if you look to the past at a very small game like Stray, they did their first party, third party publishing deal there. I would guess that would be second party, but that game did eventually come to other platforms and it is announced for Nintendo Switch. But during the time, even a tiny game like Stray that was going to show up on PS Plus day one, they were like screaming from the rooftops that that was going to be an exclusive game for the PlayStation 5. So yeah, the first two things are they have not said anything about it, and it would have been at their State of Play if they did put money in to make sure it was an exclusive. And then moving to the Xbox reasons, we have examples, like concrete proof examples with games like Baldur's Gate 3 that the Xbox Series S is holding games back. That's the reason Baldur's Gate did not come out the same day on Xbox and PS5. And when you look at the memory requirements on Steam for Black Myth Wukong, it needs more memory, almost double the memory actually, if I'm correct, than the Series S even has to work with. And Xbox has a rule in place that if you're gonna put a game out on the Series X, it also has to be available on the Series S. And they even have harder rules that say you can't strip features out. They did make a concession for Baldur's Gate 3, but clearly with every game that's coming from the third party, they want to make sure that it's available on both of their next gen consoles. So with a game that looks this good, that actually looks next gen, I don't think it's a conspiracy theory to say, to like point at the Series S and say, yeah, that thing is definitely holding this game back. They need to get some Microsoft engineers over there to figure out how to fix the game, get it optimized and everything for the Series S, and then it'll eventually come to Xbox. Like this is entirely an Xbox Xbox issue. But Jez Corden, who I met in LA, he's a great guy. I really enjoyed talking to him. He reached out to Microsoft and asked them for a statement, and their statement had a line that said, "We do not comment on deals made by our competitors." So a lot of people are taking that as an admission from Microsoft that there is a deal in place, but I just, like, I don't know. I think it's like he's an Xbox guy and I'm a PlayStation guy, so we're both looking at it from our own perspectives here. But like, even with that in mind, I just feel like there's so much more evidence that the real reason this game is not coming to Xbox at launch is that because the Series S can't run it. Like, at the end of the day, the Series S is an extremely underpowered console, and I don't know. I just think like a lot of people love to ignore that fact just because Microsoft tells us all the time that it's not underpowered, but every dev out there has basically come out and said it is holding them back, it is underpowered, and I trust the developers making the game more than the person who makes the money by selling the console, right? Like, that's just, I feel like, good investigation. I don't know, that's just my opinion though. So yeah, when it comes to Sony making a secret deal, it's definitely something they've done in the past, but if they did go out of their way to make a deal for Black Myth Wukong, there is no doubt in my mind that we would have heard about it immediately. And that brings us to the third news story here, which is that PALWORLD is finally looking like it's coming to the PlayStation 5. So this is coming from the community manager over at the developer of PALWORLD, and basically he tweeted a really cryptic tweet where he said, "What color heart should I use?" And one of the hearts he used was green, one of the hearts he used was blue. So obviously people immediately saw that and said, oh, this game is on Xbox, that's signified by the green heart, and the blue heart is probably signifying that it's coming to the PlayStation 5. And lending credence to this is the fact that during Summer Game Fest, they announced a huge update for the game that's bringing dedicated servers for Xbox, but it's also bringing new content to the game. So that would be a great time for everything to line up with the PS5 release. If you don't know what PALWORLD is, basically it's an open world survival game mixed with Pokemon, and it has guns and you can like make them slaves and shoot them and stuff. And I honestly think it looks really cool and fun, but I have kind of a rule now that I'm not playing early access games until they're finished. I just don't like that experience, and I want to pay money and get a completed product, and I've been burned a lot of times by buying an early access game and then it either gets delisted or it's never finished, or they get like 60% done, updated to 1.0 and then abandon it. That's happened countless times to me on Steam. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm not playing an early access game, but it looks like PALWORLD is continuing to get great updates, and it doesn't look like it's that far off from being actually finished. It's getting great features, so the timing makes sense for it to come to the PlayStation 5. So let me know in the comments if you're going to be picking it up when it does release. And then finally, we got to talk about Minecraft. So this game is technically on the PlayStation 5, but it's the PS4 version, and there is a much better version of the game available on PC and Series X. So it's like a downgraded version that you play when you play on PS5. Mojang just announced that they're finally natively porting Minecraft over to the PlayStation 5, and you can test it out right now. So if you have the PS4 version of the game, you can boot it up, go into the settings, and then switch it to preview mode. They don't say how long the preview mode is going to be available, but I'd guess it'll just continually get updated until it's finished, and then they'll just bump it up to the PS5 release and give everyone a free upgrade. A lot of people on the Xbox side are kind of like connecting this to the Project Latitude thing with games coming over to PlayStation, but like, they've been porting Minecraft for a long time now. I mean, they ported it to Nintendo Switch, they ported it to the PlayStation Vita, they put it on PS3. All of that happened while Microsoft owned the IP, and in cases where the game was ported before they owned it, they've still kept updates pretty concurrent across all the different versions. But the PS5 obviously has a lot more horsepower to draw out of it than the PS4, so it's good to see them going back and making sure there's a native PS5 version. I feel like there's a lot of people out there who have been getting back into Minecraft, whether they played it in high school like I did, or they found it throughout the years and just enjoy playing the game. It's one of those games where you just get the urge once a year to go play it and no life it for 2 weeks, and then you're satisfied, you put it down, and then you come back a year later and play it some more. So now you're going to be happy to know that you'll be able to natively support that on the PlayStation 5. Anyway, guys, that's all I've got for you today in this early week update. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Remember to subscribe and set your notifications to all if you haven't already. As always, my name is Jimmy Champagne. I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching, and shape on.